Jake Morrison stared at the dark space station floating in front of their ship. The metal structure looked fine from the outside, but something felt wrong. Very wrong. 3 months ago, all communication from Research Station Alpha 7 had stopped. The first rescue team sent to check on the station never came back either. Now Jake found himself on the second rescue mission. He worked as a communications officer on the exploration ship New Horizon. Captain Lisa Hayes had picked him for the away team because of his technical skills. Jake felt nervous, but also excited. This was his first real mission since joining the crew 6 months ago. "All right, people," Captain Hayes said over the intercom. "We're going in. Stay alert and stick together." Jake checked his equipment one more time. His scanner, emergency beacon, and protective suit all worked perfectly. He looked at his teammates. Security Chief Ryan Taylor carried a heavy plasma rifle and looked ready for trouble. Medical Officer Amy Watson had her medical kit and looked worried. "Remember," Amy said as they prepared to board the station, "we don't know what happened to the research team. Could be a disease, equipment failure, or something else entirely." The airlocks connected with a soft hiss. Jake felt his heartbeat, faster as the door opened. Cold air rushed out from the station, not just cool air from life support problems, but freezing cold that made his breath visible. "Temperature reading is -20 degrees, Ryan said, checking his scanner. "That's not normal for a research station." They moved through the first corridor slowly. Emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the walls. Jake noticed frost covering the walls and ceiling. Ice crystals hung from the light fixtures like tiny diamonds. "This doesn't look like equipment failure," Jake said. "It's like winter came inside the station." They reached the main living area, where the research team would have spent most of their time. Jake stopped walking. His mouth fell open. Amy gasped. Even Ryan, who had seen combat before, stepped back in shock. The entire research team was there, all 12 people. But they were not alive. They stood or sat exactly where they had been when something terrible happened to them. Each person had turned into ice. Not frozen like bodies in cold storage, but completely changed into solid ice. Jake could see through their bodies like they were made of clear glass. "What could do this?" Amy whispered. She pulled out her medical scanner but kept her distance from the frozen people. Jake walked closer to one of the ice figures. It had been Dr. Peterson, the team leader. His face showed fear and surprise. His hand reached out like he had been trying to grab something or someone. "Look at this," Ryan called from across the room. "There's a trail of ice leading toward the main laboratory." The trail looked like footprints, but made of ice instead of water or dirt. Small and delicate, like a woman's bare feet. The footprints led down a corridor toward the station's research lab. "Should we follow them?" Jake asked. "We need to find out what happened here," Captain Hayes said through their communicators. "But be careful. Whatever did this might still be on the station." They followed the ice trail down the corridor. The walls became more and more covered with frost. Their breath came out in white puffs. Jake pulled his jacket tighter around his body. At the end of the corridor, they found the main laboratory. The door hung open, and cold air flowed out like a river. Inside, more equipment was covered with ice. Computers, tables, and scientific instruments all looked like they belonged in a winter cave instead of a space station. But at the center of the room, they found something that made Jake's heart skip a beat. A woman floated in the air inside a glowing energy field. She was the most beautiful person Jake had ever seen, but also the strangest. Her skin was pale blue like winter sky. Her long hair was silver white and moved slowly like she was underwater. Ice patterns covered her skin like natural tattoos. She looked peaceful, with her eyes closed and her arms at her sides. But Jake could see she was not human. The energy field around her flickered and sparked, like it was working hard to contain something powerful. "She's alive," Amy said, reading her scanner. "But her body temperature is impossible. -40 degrees, nothing should be able to live at that temperature." Jake moved closer to the control panel next to the energy field. He wanted to read the research notes left by Dr. Peterson's team. As he got closer to the woman, something strange happened. He felt warm. Not just comfortable, but actually warm, like standing near a fireplace. The logs say they found her in a crashed ship on the planet below, Jake said, reading the computer screen. She was the only survivor. They brought her here to study her. Study her? Ryan asked. Looks more like they were trying to contain her. Jake continued reading. According to this, she's from a race called the Veltar. They come from somewhere in the Andromeda Galaxy. The research team was trying to communicate with her when something went wrong. The energy field around the woman began to flicker more rapidly. Warning lights started blinking on the control panel. The containment field is failing, Amy said, looking at her scanner. Whatever is powering it is running out of energy. Jake looked at the woman again. As if she could sense his attention, her eyes slowly opened. They were like looking at frozen starlight. Beautiful, but alien. She looked directly at Jake, and he felt that strange warmth grow stronger in his chest. The energy field made a loud, crackling sound and died completely. The woman gracefully floated down until her bare feet touched the metal floor. The moment her skin made contact with the surface, ice began spreading outward in all directions. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that Jake could see frost forming on his gloves. "Everyone back away," Amy shouted. "Don't let her touch you." But Jake found himself stepping forward instead of back. Something about the woman's sad, lonely expression made him want to help her, not run away. She looked at him with those star-like eyes, and Jake felt like she was seeing into his soul. The woman tried to speak, but her voice came out as a whisper that sounded like wind blowing through ice caves. Jake leaned closer to hear her words, ignoring Amy and Ryan's warnings to stay back. "I am sorry," the woman said in perfect English, though her accent was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. "I did not want this to happen. Everyone I touch becomes ice. Everyone dies." Jake looked into her eyes and saw centuries of loneliness and pain. He understood now what had happened to the research team. They had tried to help her, but her touch was deadly to any living thing. She was a prisoner of her own body, unable to connect with anyone without killing them. "What's your name?" Jake asked softly. "I am Kira," she replied. "I am the last of my people, and I am cursed." The laboratory temperature dropped so fast that Jake could see his breath turn into white clouds. Frost spread across every surface like living vines. The metal walls cracked from the sudden cold. Amy and Ryan backed toward the door, their faces pale with fear. "Jake, get away from her," Amy shouted. "Amy, look what happened to the research team." But Jake stayed where he was. Something deep inside him felt different. While everyone else shivered from the deadly cold, he felt that strange warmth in his chest growing stronger. It was like having a small sun burning inside his heart. Kira stood in the center of the room, ice spreading outward from her feet in perfect circles. She looked at her hands with deep sadness. "I have been alone for 300 of your years," she said quietly. "I cannot touch another living being without bringing death." "How did this happen to you?" Jake asked, taking a small step closer. Amy grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy? She just told you she kills everything she touches." Jake gently pulled free from Amy's grip. He felt no fear, only curiosity and something else he could not name. "Tell me about your people," he said to Kira. Kira's strange, star-like eyes filled with pain. "The Veltar were once a great people. We lived on a world of eternal winter, but it was beautiful. Our cities were made of living ice that sang in the wind. We could shape cold the way artists shape clay." She walked slowly around the room, her footsteps leaving perfect ice prints on the floor. "We were healers and builders. My people brought life to frozen worlds, created gardens that bloomed even in the coldest places. I was a healer among my kind. I helped others, brought comfort to the sick and wounded." "What changed?" Jake asked. "War came to our galaxy," Kira continued. "The hegemony wanted to control all worlds, all peoples. When we refused to bow to them, they created a weapon designed to destroy us. It turned our greatest gift into a curse. I kept his rifle ready, but lowered it slightly." "What kind of weapon?" "They called it the Ice Death," Kira said, her voice becoming even sadder. "It was made to corrupt our natural abilities. Instead of bringing life through ice and cold, we brought only death. One by one, my people began changing. First the warriors, then the builders, then the healers like me. She stopped walking and looked directly at Jake. I was the last to be changed. I watched my entire race die from this curse before it finally took me too. But unlike the others, I did not die. I have wandered the galaxy ever since, unable to return home, unable to make contact with any living thing. Amy stepped forward carefully, staying well away from the ice on the floor. The research logs mentioned you were found in a crashed ship. How did you get here? I have been searching for 3 centuries, Kira explained. Looking for someone who might be able to help me break this curse. The Veltar had ancient stories about a race of warm-blooded beings from a distant galaxy. Beings who carried fire in their hearts and could resist the coldest death. Jake felt his heart beat faster. You mean humans? I was not certain until now, Kira said, looking at him with wonder. You stand close to me, yet you do not freeze. You do not die. How is this possible? Amy pulled out her medical scanner and pointed it at Jake from a safe distance. The device made several beeping sounds before she looked at the readings with confusion. This is impossible, she muttered. Jake, your body temperature has actually gone up since you've been near her, and there's some kind of energy reading I've never seen before. What does that mean? Ryan asked. I don't know, Amy admitted. His heart is pumping blood at twice the normal rate, but he shows no signs of stress or fear, and there's definitely some kind of bioelectric field around him. Jake looked at his hands. They felt normal to him, but Amy's scanner suggested something had changed. I feel fine, he said. Actually, I feel better than fine. I feel alive. Kira moved closer to Jake, her movements graceful like a dancer. May I try something? She asked softly. Kira, no, Amy shouted. If you're wrong about him, you'll kill him. But Jake nodded. Something told him it would be safe. The warmth in his chest had grown so strong he could almost see it glowing through his uniform. Very slowly, Kira reached out her hand toward Jake's. Her fingers were pale blue and covered with natural ice patterns that moved like living art. Jake could feel the cold radiating from her skin, but it did not frighten him. Their fingers touched. Amy closed her eyes, expecting to see Jake turn into ice like the research team. Ryan raised his rifle, ready to do something, though he was not sure what. But Jake did not freeze. Instead, something amazing happened. Where their skin met, neither ice nor warmth dominated. They balanced each other perfectly. Jake felt the cold from Kira's touch, but it could not overcome the fire in his blood. Kira felt Jake's warmth, and for the first time in 3 centuries, the killing cold inside her softened. Impossible, Kira whispered, staring at their joined hands. I can feel your life force, but it does not freeze. It does not die. Jake smiled. Maybe impossible things happen when the right people meet. They stood there for several moments, hands touching, neither harming the other. Around them, the room began to change. The deadly ice stopped spreading. The temperature remained cold, but no longer dropped. For the first time since Kira had awakened, the environment became stable. This changes everything, Amy said, still scanning them both with her medical equipment. If Jake can safely make contact with her, maybe we can find a way to help her, control her abilities. But their moment of hope was interrupted by Captain Hayes's voice over their communicators. Oh wait team, we have a problem up here. Long-range sensors are picking up several ships approaching our position. They're not responding to our communications and they're moving fast. Ryan activated his communicator. Captain, can you identify the ships? Negative. The design is unknown, but they're big and heavily armed. We need you back on the ship immediately. Jake looked at Kira. You said the hegemony created the weapon that cursed your people. Do you think they're still looking for you? Kira's expression became grim. The hegemony never stops hunting. If they have found me here, they will not simply go away. They see me as a weapon to be controlled, not a person to be helped. Then we protect you, Jake said firmly. Jake, Amy said carefully, we don't know what we're dealing with here. Maybe we should let the captain handle this. But Jake kept hold of Kira's hand. The warmth in his chest told him this was right. She's been alone for 300 years. That ends now. Kira looked at Jake with something he had not seen in her eyes before. Hope. You would do this for me? You barely know me. I know enough, Jake replied. You're not a weapon. You're a person who needs help. And humans don't abandon people who need help. Ryan sighed and adjusted his rifle. Well, if we're doing this, we better get back to the ship and prepare for whatever's coming. As they prepared to leave the laboratory, Jake did not let go of Kira's hand. Together, they walked through the frozen corridors of the research station, toward whatever challenges waited for them among the stars. For the first time in centuries, Kira was not alone, and Jake was beginning to understand that this meeting would change not just her life, but the future of both their peoples. Jake and Kira walked back to the new horizon together, still holding hands. The other crew members stared in shock when they saw Jake touching the alien woman without freezing to death. Captain Hayes met them at the airlock, her face showing both amazement and worry. Jake, are you all right? The captain asked. Amy's report sounds impossible. I'm fine, Captain, Jake replied. Better than fine, actually. This is Kira. She needs our help. Captain Hayes studied Kira carefully. Ice crystals still formed in the air around the alien woman, but they were smaller now, less dangerous. Amy tells me you can kill with a touch. How do we know our ship will be safe? Kira spoke softly, her strange accent making each word sound musical. I will stay in the cargo bay. I do not wish to harm your people. I have caused enough death. That won't be necessary, Jake said quickly. As long as I'm with her, she can control her abilities. Amy stepped forward with her medical scanner. Captain, I need to run more tests on both of them. Jake's body is doing something I've never seen before. His bioelectric field seems to neutralize her freezing effect. Before Captain Hayes could respond, the ship's alarm began blaring. The lights on the bridge flashed red and everyone could hear the urgent beeping of the long-range sensors. Captain, to the bridge immediately, came the voice of Navigation Officer Tom Bradley. The unknown. Ships are almost here and they're definitely not friendly. Captain Hayes looked at Jake and Kira. This conversation isn't over. Amy, take them to Medical Bay 2. Run whatever test you need. Jake, I want a full report in 1 hour. What about the approaching ships? Jake asked. Let me worry about that, Captain Hayes said as she headed for the bridge. In the medical bay, Amy began running detailed scans on both Jake and Kira. The results confused her more with each test. Jake's DNA showed changes that should not be possible. Deep in his genetic code, she found patterns that did not match any known Earth species. Jake, this is incredible, Amy said, studying her computer screen. You have genetic markers that suggest your ancestors had contact with non-human species thousands of years ago. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means somewhere in humanity's distant past, your family line mixed with another race. One that had natural resistance to extreme cold and energy-based attacks. Kira listened to this with growing interest. The ancient stories of my people spoke of the fire-bearers, beings who carried warmth in their blood and could walk on frozen worlds without protection. We thought they were myths. Amy continued her scans. It's dormant in most humans, but something about Kira's presence has activated it in you. Your body is now producing a form of bioelectric heat that perfectly counters her freezing field. Jake looked at Kira with wonder. So we balance each other out? More than that, Amy said. Your connection seems to be getting stronger. Kira, your body temperature has actually risen by 5 degrees since you started touching Jake. And Jake, your bioelectric output has doubled. Before they could discuss this further, the ship shook violently. Emergency lights flashed as the new horizon was hit by weapons fire. Captain Hayes' voice came over the intercom. All crew to battle stations. We are under attack by hegemony forces. They are demanding we surrender someone they call the ice weapon. Kira's face went pale. They have found me. I am so sorry. I have brought danger to your people. This isn't your fault, Jake said firmly. Amy, how long until you finish the tests? I need at least another hour to understand what's happening to both of you, Amy replied. The ship shook again, harder, this time. Through the medical bay's small window, Jake could see 3 large warships surrounding the new horizon. They were dark gray, with red markings, built for destruction rather than exploration. Jake's communicator crackled to life. "Jake, report to the bridge immediately," Captain Hayes ordered. "Bring our guest with you." Jake and Kira made their way to the bridge, still holding hands. The crew members they passed stared openly at the alien woman, but none showed the fear Jake had expected. Instead, they looked curious and concerned. On the bridge, Captain Hayes stood before the main view screen. A reptilian alien with cold yellow eyes glared at them from the screen. His skin was dark green and covered with scales. He wore a military uniform, decorated with medals and symbols of rank. "I am Commander Voss of the Hegemony Third Fleet," the alien said in a harsh voice. "You are harboring a dangerous weapon. Surrender the Veltar female immediately and your ship will be spared." Captain Hayes crossed her arms. "We don't surrender members of our crew to anyone. If you want to talk, we can negotiate." "Commander," Voss laughed, a sound like stones grinding together. "You do not understand, human. That creature has destroyed entire colonies. She is responsible for the deaths of millions. She is too dangerous to exist freely." Kira stepped forward, her voice steady despite her sadness. "I never wanted to hurt anyone. Your people cursed me with this power." "Silence, weapon," Voss snapped. "You will return to containment where you belong." Jake felt anger building in his chest. The warmth that connected him to Kira flared brighter. "She's not a weapon. She's a person who needs help." "Foolish human," Voss said. "You cannot help her. The curse cannot be broken. We have tried for centuries." "Maybe you haven't tried hard enough," Jake replied. Commander Voss's eyes narrowed. "You will surrender her in 10 minutes or we will take her by force. Your ship cannot withstand our firepower." The view screen went dark. Captain Hayes turned to her crew. "Tom, can we outrun them?" "Negative, Captain," Tom Bradley replied from the navigation station. "They're faster and better armed than we are." "What about calling for backup?" Ryan suggested. "The nearest Earth fleet is 3 days away," Captain Hayes said grimly. Jake looked at Kira, then at the captain. "There might be another way." "What do you mean?" Captain Hayes asked. "Kira and I are connected now. Her powers don't hurt me, and my presence helps her control them. What if we could use that somehow?" Amy looked up from her medical scanner. "Jake, we don't know the full extent of what's happening to you both. It could be dangerous." "More dangerous than letting the hegemony take her?" Jake asked. Kira squeezed his hand gently. "Jake, I will not let you risk your life for me. I have lived with this curse for 3 centuries. I can continue to live with it." "No," Jake said firmly. "You said you've been alone for 300 years. That changes now. We're going to find a way to help you, and we're going to do it together." Captain Hayes looked at both of them. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I'm not sure yet," Jake admitted. "But I know that humans don't abandon people in need. And I know that sometimes the impossible becomes possible when people work together." The ship shook again as the hegemony vessels moved into attack formation. Time was running out, but Jake felt more determined than ever. Somewhere in the connection between him and Kira lay the key to everything. He just had to find it before Commander Voss decided to stop talking and start shooting. "Amy, keep running those tests," Captain Hayes ordered. "Everyone else prepare for whatever comes next. We're not giving up without a fight." Jake looked out at the enemy ships and felt the fire in his blood burn brighter. The hegemony had cursed Kira once before. He would not let them take her away now that she finally had hope. The 10 minutes passed too quickly. Commander Voss appeared on the view screen again, his reptilian face showing no mercy. Behind him, Jake could see other hegemony officers preparing weapons and boarding equipment. "Time is up, humans," Voss announced. "Prepare to be boarded. We will take the weapon by force." Captain Hayes stood straight and proud. "We will not surrender an innocent person to you." "Innocent?" Voss laughed his grinding laugh. "That creature killed an entire research station just days ago. She cannot control her deadly power. She is a danger to everyone around her." Jake stepped forward, still holding Kira's hand. She's learning to control it. I'm helping her. Impossible, Voss said. No living being can survive her touch. We have tested this many times over the centuries. Then you didn't test the right person, Jake replied. Amy looked up from her medical scanner with excitement. Captain, I'm getting readings that are off the charts. The connection between Jake and Kira is creating some kind of energy field around them both. Commander Voss leaned forward on the screen. What are you saying, human? I'm saying your information is wrong, Jake said boldly. Kira isn't just a weapon. When she's with me, she can control her abilities precisely. To prove his point, Jake nodded at Kira. She understood immediately. Very carefully, she reached out toward a metal tool on the bridge console. Instead of freezing the entire tool solid, she created a thin layer of ice only on the handle. The rest of the tool remained normal. The bridge crew watched in amazement. Ryan whistled softly. She's not freezing everything anymore. Kira looked at her hand with wonder. I can feel the difference. Your warmth guides my power, Jake. Instead of wild freezing, I can choose what to freeze and how much. Commander Voss's eyes widened with interest rather than anger. Show me more. Why should we? Captain Hayes asked. Because if what you claim is true, it changes everything, Voss replied. The hegemony has spent centuries trying to find a way to control her power. If this human can do what our best scientists could not, Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with Kira's abilities. You want to use us both as weapons. The hegemony brings order to the galaxy, Voss said. With controlled power like this, we could end wars before they start. Freeze enemy ships in space without killing the crews. It would save millions of lives. By enslaving us, Kira said quietly. By giving you purpose, Voss corrected. You have wandered alone for centuries, bringing only death. We offer you a chance to bring peace instead. Jake looked at Captain Hayes. There has to be another way. Amy continued scanning them both. Captain, their energy readings are still climbing. Whatever is happening between them is getting stronger, by the minute. Suddenly, Jake felt something new. The warmth in his chest began to spread throughout his entire body. At the same time, he could sense Kira's power more clearly than before. It was not just cold or ice. It was energy itself, raw and powerful, that could be shaped and directed. Kira, he said softly. Can you feel what I'm feeling? She nodded, her star-like eyes growing brighter. Yes, your fire and my ice are becoming one power. Something new. Enough talk, Commander Voss declared. Prepare for boarding. We will take both the weapon and her human controller. The hegemony ships began moving closer to the new horizon. Jake could see small fighter craft launching from their bays, heading straight for the human ship. Captain, Jake said urgently, give me and Kira access to the ship's external sensors. What are you planning? Captain Hayes asked. I'm not sure, Jake admitted. But I think we can do more than just control ice now. Amy looked at her readings again. Captain, their energy output is now 10 times normal human levels, and it's still growing. Captain Hayes made a quick decision. Tom, give them sensor access. Everyone else prepare for boarding action. Jake and Kira moved to the sensor station. When they both placed their hands on the controls, something incredible happened. Through the ship's sensors, they could feel the space around them. They could sense the heat of the engines, the cold of empty space, and the energy fields of the approaching hegemony ships. I can feel their ships, Kira whispered. The metal, the electronics, the temperature variations. And I can feel the energy flowing through everything, Jake added. The power systems, the life support, the weapons. Working together, they reached out with their combined abilities toward the nearest hegemony fighter. Instead of freezing it, solid, or heating it up, they did something much more precise. They found the ship's weapon systems and carefully lowered their temperature, just enough to make them stop working. The fighters' guns went silent. What happened to Fighter 7? They heard Voss shouting over the communication channel. Jake and Kira smiled at each other. They reached out to the next fighter, then the next. One by one, they disabled the weapons on every small ship without hurting the pilots inside. This is impossible, Voss roared. Long-range weapons fire from the main ships. But Jake and Kira were ready. Together, they projected their power toward the largest hegemony warship. They found the energy conduits that powered the main guns and carefully disrupted them. The massive weapons powered down harmlessly. "Captain," Tom Bradley reported with excitement. "All 3 enemy ships have lost weapons power. They're defenseless." Commander Voss appeared on the screen again, his face showing shock and fear for the first time. "How are you doing this? No single being has such power." "You're right," Jake said. "No single being could do this, but we're not alone anymore." Kira stepped beside Jake, her confidence growing with each moment. "For 3 centuries, I believed I was cursed to bring only death. But Jake has shown me that my power can bring protection instead of destruction. Your scientists tried to control me by keeping me isolated," she continued. "But humans understand something you do not. True strength comes from connection, not domination." Jake felt the power flowing between them stronger than ever. "We could disable your life support systems just as easily as your weapons, but we won't. Humans don't kill when we can choose mercy instead." Commander Voss stared at them for a long moment. "You have made enemies of the hegemony today." "We've defended ourselves against bullies," Captain Hayes said firmly. "If that makes us enemies, so be it." The hegemony ships began to retreat, their damaged systems leaving them vulnerable. But Jake knew this was not over. Word would spread through the galaxy about what had happened here. Some would see it as hope. Others would see it as a threat. "What happens now?" Kira asked quietly. Jake squeezed her hand gently. "Now we figure out how to use this gift to help people instead of fighting them." Amy approached with her final test results. "I have good news and interesting news. The good news is that your connection is stable and safe. The interesting news is that it's still evolving. In a few days you might be able to do things we can't even imagine yet." Jake looked around the bridge at his crewmates. These people had risked their lives to protect Kira even though they barely knew her. That was what made humans special in the galaxy. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we'll face it together." Kira smiled, and for the first time in 3 centuries, it was a smile of pure joy instead of sadness. The curse that had isolated her for so long was becoming a gift that connected her to others. And at the center of that connection was a human who had chosen to see hope where others saw only danger. 3 months after the battle with Commander Voss, Jake and Kira stood on the observation deck of a new space station. Through the large windows, they could see ships from dozens of different species arriving and departing. The station floated at the edge of human space, serving as a meeting place for beings from across the galaxy. "I never imagined anything like this would be possible," Kira said, watching a group of blue-skinned Andorians talking peacefully with some furry Talaxians. So many different people working together. Jake smiled as he held her hand. Their connection had grown stronger over the months, but it no longer surprised him. It felt as natural as breathing. Humans are good at bringing people together. We learned a long time ago that we're stronger when we help each other. The station was Jake's idea, though Captain Hayes had made it happen. After word spread about the human who could touch the Ice Woman, representatives from many worlds had come to see if the stories were true. Some came out of curiosity. Others came seeking help with their own problems. "Jake, Kira," came a familiar voice behind them. Amy approached with her ever-present medical scanner and a big smile. "The Zephyrian delegation just arrived. They're asking if you can help with their cooling systems problem." The Zephyrians were a desert people whose ships always ran too hot. Their cooling technology had never worked well in space. But Jake and Kira had discovered they could precisely control temperature in complex machinery, making adjustments that normal engineering could not achieve. "Of course," Kira said. "It feels good to use my abilities to help instead of harm." As they walked through the station corridors, Jake thought about how much had changed. The curse that had made Kira a weapon of death had become a tool for healing and building. Together, they had helped dozens of species solve problems that had troubled them for years. They stopped by the medical center where Dr. Lisa Park was treating a young Altarian child. The girl had been born with a condition that made her body temperature too low to sustain life. Traditional medicine could not help her. "How is she doing?" Kira asked softly. Dr. Park looked up with a pleased expression. Much better since your treatment last week. Her body temperature has stabilized at normal levels. Her parents are calling it a miracle. Jake and Kira had learned they could make permanent changes to living tissue when they worked together. Not freezing or burning, but careful adjustments that helped bodies heal themselves. The Altarian child was one of many they had helped. There's someone here to see you both, Doctor, Park added. In conference room 3. Jake and Kira exchanged glances. They were not expecting any visitors today. When they entered the conference room, they found Captain Hayes talking with a tall, elegant woman Jake had never seen before. The woman had pale golden skin and long white hair that seemed to move in a breeze that did not exist. Her eyes were like liquid silver, beautiful but clearly not human. Jake, Kira, Captain Hayes said, I'd like you to meet Ambassador Lyra of the Ethereal Collective. The woman stepped forward gracefully. I have traveled very far to meet you both. My people have been watching your work with great interest. The Ethereal Collective? Jake asked. I've never heard of them. Ambassador Lyra smiled. We are an old race, much older than humans or even the Veltar. We have spent millions of years studying the connections between different forms of life and energy. She gestured to Jake and Kira's joined hands. What you two have achieved is remarkable. You have created a stable energy bond between two completely different biological systems. This should be impossible according to most scientific understanding. But you know why it works? Kira asked hopefully. We have theories, Lyra replied. Both humans and Veltar are descended from races that were seeded across the galaxies long ago by an ancient civilization. They built genetic markers into certain bloodlines, hoping that someday different species would find each other and combine their abilities. Jake felt a chill of excitement. You mean this was planned somehow? Not planned exactly, Lyra explained. More like hoped for. The ancient race believed that the future of all life in the universe would depend on cooperation between different species. They created the potential for such cooperation and trusted that worthy individuals would find each other when the time was right. Captain Hayes leaned forward. Are you saying there are others like Jake and Kira? Possibly, Lyra said. We believe there are compatible pairs scattered across many galaxies, but finding each other requires more than just genetics. It requires the right circumstances and the right choices. Kira squeezed Jake's hand. What kind of choices? The choice to help instead of harm, Lyra said. The choice to trust instead of fear. The choice to see potential instead of danger. These are not common choices in the galaxy. Most species choose power over cooperation. Jake thought about Commander Voss and the hegemony. They had seen Kira only as a weapon to be controlled, but humans had seen her as a person who needed help. The hegemony is still out there, Jake said. They haven't given up trying to capture Kira, which is why the Ethereal Collective has come forward now, Lyra replied. We wish to offer you both membership in our alliance. Many peaceful species have joined together to protect each other from groups like the hegemony. What would that mean for us? Kira asked. It would mean you are no longer alone in the galaxy, Lyra said. It would mean having allies who understand what you can do and want to help you do it safely. Captain Hayes smiled. It would also mean Earth gains some very powerful friends. Jake looked out the conference room window at all the different ships docked at the station. Beings from dozens of worlds had come here because they heard humans were willing to help anyone who asked. That was what made his species special, he realized. Not superior technology or greater strength, but the simple willingness to care about others. There's something else, Lyra added. Our scientists believe that with proper training, you and Kira could learn to help others form similar connections. Not exactly like yours, but partnerships that combine different abilities for the greater good. You mean we could teach other species to work together the way we do? Jake asked. It's possible, Lyra said. Imagine a galaxy where instead of fighting each other, different species combine their strengths to solve problems and explore new worlds. Kira's eyes brightened with excitement. A galaxy where no one has to be alone with their burdens. Jake thought about the journey that had brought them here. 3 months ago, he had been a simple communications officer who discovered A frozen research station. Now he and Kira were being offered a chance to change the entire galaxy. "What do you think?" he asked Kira. She smiled, the same joyful smile that had replaced her centuries of sadness. "I think humans have taught me that the best adventures are the ones you share with friends." Jake turned to Ambassador Lyra. "We accept your offer, but we want to keep this station operating too. There are still people out there who need help, and humans don't abandon people who need help." "Of course," Lyra agreed. "This station will become one of many places where species can come together in peace." As the meeting ended and plans were made for the future, Jake realized that the ancient race Lyra had mentioned had been right. The future of the galaxy really did depend on cooperation. And somehow, a human communications officer, and the last survivor of a cursed race had become the proof that such cooperation was possible. The galaxy was a big place, full of dangers and conflicts, but it was also full of potential for friendship and wonder. And Jake knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he and Kira would face them together, along with all the friends they had yet to meet among the stars.